Thank you for listening to Comics for Fun and Profit. This is episode 392. So we are really close to that 400th episode where we are going to do probably very little to nothing to celebrate. But it's still a nice milestone. Who knew these two idiots from Southeast Ohio would be able to cobble together for nearly 400 episodes on comics and comic speculation. So it's kind of cool. I am here by myself. So guess where that means Kyle's on vacation. I know this is a surprise because he's so dedicated, but he's taken yet another vacation and is out of town. So I'm going to trudge on. I can hear the sounds of podcasts all around the world turning off, deleting, because there is no Kyle here. But I will do my very best. And we get a question from time to time, very similar to this one, and I thought I would address it here on the podcast. This is from Aaron Churchill. He says, I have been looking into doing a podcast for some time. However, I've let my lack of know-how keep this from happening. I was wondering if you could share how you make, host, edit, and post your podcast. I'm asking if you are so kind for some details here. How do you record? How do you get from point A to me downloading it and listening to it? I guess it's point B. I'm currently tooling around the internet trying to figure this out. Sincerely, Aaron Churchill, listener and appreciator of all you do. Well, Aaron, we do get this question a few times a year, and I don't know if I think we've addressed it before. I think we've had an episode before, but instead of finding that and replaying it, I'll just I'll start over. Anybody can podcast. That's the good news. Bad news is anybody can podcast. There's some dreck out there, but then there's some great, insightful, wonderful podcasts like ourselves. The bare minimums you need are a laptop and or desktop and a microphone. You can get away with people do things on their phones. People do things with their dock mics. I wouldn't recommend it. It's pretty bad, and we've had some really poor results with Xbox headsets and things like that. And so I would suggest you buy yourself a mic. You do not have to buy a blue mic, which is what we use. We use Yetis, which is bluemic.com. BLUEMIC.com. Don't really endorse those, but that's the ones we use. We've had pretty good luck with them. They've held up well and sound pretty good. But you can get yourself just a quality USB mic, $50 or so, probably as a minimum, to be a decent mic that will pick you up. And then depending on how many hosts you have, you either need a really good mic that sits in the middle of the table that you all talk into, or you all need your own mics if you're in different places to record. You then need to download Audacity, a program at audacityteam.org that you can get for free. It's a recording software. You can buy Adobe Audition if you'd like. That's affordable. And that's a little more robust program if you'd like to do that. Lots of folks use GarageBand if they're Mac people, but I'm a PC guy, so I do not use GarageBand, but a lot of folks have. Then you just record yourself, especially if it's a solo podcast. You just hit record, talk, and when you're done, you export in mono. Don't export in stereo. You're using bandwidth that you really don't need. And mono's a smaller file, and you'll see later that's important. The smaller the file, the better. And just make sure it's an MP3. If you do have a co-host, or 2 or 3, they all need to kind of have the same setup and should be able to record their sides of the conversation. Just make sure you have an audible cue at the beginning to line up your tracks. So We do a 3-2-1 clap, which I occasionally leave in there accidentally, and listeners have been so kind to point that out that I am an idiot. And sometimes, that's something that you just use to line up tracks, and then you cut it off and edit it out. You should also get some redundant recording software. You can use VoIPCallRecording.com. Go to VoIPCallRecording.com. VoIPCallRecording.com, and that records everyone on the Skype call. And it's not ideal. It's not as good as taking everyone's individual tracks and mixing them together. But it's good for a backup. It's good when you are interviewing a creator or someone who doesn't have this set up. And it's nice to have that redundant backup just in case somebody screws up on their end and doesn't export their piece right, or doesn't, or it gets mangled or lost or deleted or whatever. It's nice to have that. So I would suggest that both you and your co-host back it up as a redundant source, and it can always be deleted once the episode is complete. It's once you've screwed up a podcast and lost, 45 minutes or an hour of conversation that you have to try to replicate again. Once you do that once, you will understand the value of redundant backups. It's important, and it's annoying to have to go back and do it again. Okay, so that's kind of the technical side of getting the audio together. Kind of in general, you need a name, something kind of catchy, something kind of memorable, and one that hasn't already been claimed. If it's a comics podcast, and you didn't say that it was, but if it's a comics podcast, the word comics is in a lot of stuff, but it's also that makes it easier to search for. So, best of luck trying to come up with something catchy and memorable in that space, because a lot of things have been claimed or have been claimed and abandoned by pod faders who did 3 episodes and then never did another one, but they're still out there, so it's tough to use their things. But hopefully it's unique enough that you can create a Gmail account in your name, in a Facebook account, a Twitter account, Instagram account, etc., in that same name, so that it's all one cohesive brand. Use that Gmail account that you've set up. I guess it doesn't have to be Gmail, but whatever, an email account. And then you'll go to a service called, I use Podomatic, Podomatic.com. There are Podbeans and Lisbons and tons of other ones. But I use Podomatic, and then you sign up there, and it's kind of a step-by-step on how to create your podcast from that MP3 that you've already created. You can then use that to publish your very first podcast, and then submit your RSS feed of that podcast to iTunes. There's plenty of help files out there on how to do so. SoundCloud.com has a ton of articles on how to link RSS feeds to iTunes. You could start there, but you got to give it a day or two because there's a lag. Apple's in no hurry to get that out there for you, especially when you're setting up for the first time. So give it a day or two, wait, see if it shows up on iTunes. If it does not, then resubmit it, and then hopefully it works by then. And then check all the articles that you've used to make sure you've done it correctly. That is kind of it used to be a complex initial task. Maybe it's easier now. This is kind of, you probably need a logo in there too, so create something in the proper specs for Podomatic and iTunes that can be visibly shown as your podcast and podcast episodes. You don't want some generic placeholder that they generate, or God forbid, nothing to show up. and just a question mark or whatever the default initial image is. So you want something on there, or no one's even going to bother to listen to you. So you have to have some kind of imagery on there to represent you or your podcast. Once all that's done, you kind of populate it on iTunes. You can do the same thing over at Stitcher and other podcast distribution aggregate services. You can find those. Just Google and find them and figure out how to submit to all those. You can convert that podcast to YouTube audio video. Whether you're using video or not, you can do that and use that as an online archive if you'd like. We started to do that, and it's kind of time consuming, so I haven't done all of our episodes yet, but eventually I'd like to get them all up there. Even though our stuff gets dated pretty quickly, it would be nice to have a record of every single podcast we've ever done. And with a free service like Podomatic, well, it's initially free anyway. I pay for it now, but it was initially free for a small amount of bandwidth and space. So you lose, over time, you lose those old podcasts and have to go back and either archive them some other way. So once that's all populated and you've got it on all your services that you want, at that point you can promote them on your various social media that you've also set up already. So, share links to those episodes on the various distribution platforms, and hopefully your friends and family will share those, or you can pay to promote those via various pay sites to promote via Facebook or whatever. Now, that's probably the most affordable way to podcast. That is kind of the cheapest way, and you can, besides the cost of a mic, if you already have a laptop or computer, you really don't have anything else invested. I still think the mic's worth the investment, but you really have no costs at this point. Now, once your bandwidth exceeds a certain amount, or your episodes fill up the allotted storage that you were given in Podomatic or whatever you choose, then you're going to have to pay a little bit to get expanded bandwidth, expanded storage. You can bypass all this and build yourself a website, WordPress website with the PowerPress plugin. And then you won't need Podomatic or Podbean or any of those. WordPress.com can walk you through how to do all that. But then you need server space and server costs. But in the long run, that's probably a more affordable way to do it than the way I'm doing it. But I started this way, and I don't want to swap everything over. Because I just don't have that time to deal with that crap right now. But ideally, if I had it to do over again, I would have built the website with WordPress and PowerPress, and bought server space somewhere, and just housed my own media, because we don't have the number of downloads at the same time to that really slows it down too much. Sometimes we do, but our bandwidth isn't so heavy that we need to pay for this Podomatic service to be a media streaming service. I think we could have gotten away with a regular website server, and hindsight is 20/20. So there, for what it's worth, there you go. It's really easy once you get it all set up, and if you have any more questions, or anybody else is intrigued by this and wants a little more information about any of the things that I kind of ran through really quickly, I'd be glad to send you this kind of step-by-step in an email. So reach out to me at comicsforfunandprofit@gmail.com. That catchy name that I came up with. Really long. Really long. It's too long for Twitter. It's too long. It's really clunky. It's a really long email. So think that through as well. Learn from my mistakes. And also, when you're choosing co-hosts, maybe choose one that doesn't have a lot of vacation time. That would be my suggestion to you. And one that is up about the same time you are, has the same work schedule, and you guys, your time off and free time kind of syncs. So that way one person isn't always outside of their comfort zone as far as being awake. That's a challenge as well. So it's easy, it's fun. You get to chit chat with lots of great listeners like yourself, and as you'll see coming up later in this episode, sometimes those listeners go out and create content for you because they love comics too and want to share that with you. So we've got an interview with an online retailer coming up soon, supplied to us by our friend Jason in Hawaii. So look forward to that. But again, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, or our email. Or you can find all the links to how to get a hold of us easily at our website, comicsfunprofit.com. And that would help connect with us with any more questions about this topic of starting your own podcast, or comics-related questions and feedback. We'd love to hear from you. Now, before we get to Jason's great interview, we should probably do and by we, I mean me, a sneak peek at next week, because we have comics coming out on August 16th, and they'll be in your stores shortly. So, first and foremost, we're always going to start in Dark Horse, and I have nothing spec-worthy there. There is a Briggs Land Lone Wolves #3, which is the second volume of Brian Wood's Briggs Land series. That's a really good read. I think it's already optioned, but I don't know if there's any value in this at all. As far as DC, we've got the great cover A's and cover B's that continue. Beautiful stuff. Take a look at Aquaman, Batman, Green Arrow, Green Lanterns. We've got a couple of Justice Leagues, a couple Nightwings, Super Sons, Superman, and Wonder Woman's cover A's and cover B's. And of course, the Wonder Woman is the great Jenny Frison B cover, which is beautiful. First and foremost, the big 800-pound gorilla, elephant in the room, whatever that saying is Dark Knight's Metal #1 from DC. Written by Scott Snyder with art by Danny Mickey and Greg Capullo. Dark Days of the Forge and the casting has hinted at dark corners of reality that has never been seen till now. Now as Dark Knight's Metal begins, the dark multiverse is revealed in all its devastating danger, and the threats it contains are coming for the DC universe. Dark Knight's Metal is a DC event unlike any other one that will push Batman, Superman, and heroes of the Justice League beyond their limits to take on threats unlike any our world has ever seen. It will take the combined might of the world's greatest heroes, as you've never seen them before, to face what's coming. It's a $4.99 book, and it's kind of make or break for me because I've had mixed feelings on both the casting and the Forge. Some interesting things in there, some nice fan service, also some crap I could not care less about. They got lost in the weeds, I thought, with some of this metal stuff. So, #1 is here. If you haven't been living under a rock, you know it's coming. You're either A, excited, or B, not excited about it. I am probably not excited. I'm hopeful that it's better than what I've read so far, and I'm going to give it just the 1. And then I might not even finish it if it's as long in the tooth as it has been. I'm maybe tired of Scott Snyder's expansive writing. Just kind of writing and writing and writing, overwriting, in my opinion, of things that can be said a little more cleanly and a little more enjoyably. But I am going to give it a shot, and I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that those two prequels were just a little hit and miss. There was some good stuff in both of them. I will give you that. So keep your eye out for that. It is $5, but I'm sure it's oversized. We have Future Quest Presents #1, written by Jeff Parker, art and a cover by Ariel Olivetti. If you've been reading Future Quest, you knew this was coming. But this is a continuation of this, with Space Ghost and his young wards, Jan and Jace, teaming up with the Herculoids to rebuild the mighty Space Force. Will they rise again to become defenders of the galaxy? Or is there something lurking in the shadows ready to stop them for good? I jumped off of Future Quest. I might sample this to see if it's a little more well-defined than the previous one was. At least the issues I read. So I'll probably check this out just to see. I am still reading Apocalypse, Scooby-Doo Apocalypse, but I think everything else is gone. I don't think there's anything else left from that initial launch. So I think this will be something to sample. Might be worthwhile. We have a Sandman special, #1, written by Dan Jurgens and Steve Orlando, with art by John Bogdanave and Rick Leonardi, with a cover by Paul Pope, which is always nice. And this is the continuing Jack Kirby tributes that are going on, and this is regarding the 70s Sandman, as Brute and Glob battle an onslaught of dreams so powerful they are invading the dreams of other people. Then a grown-up Jed Walker returns to his childhood home, only to find himself haunted by dreams from the past. This issue also includes Strange Tales from the DNA Project, from Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, 142 through 144, 146, and 148. Written and penciled by Jack Kirby, and Turn on the Heat, starring the Newsboy Legion, from Star Spangled Comics #27, written and illustrated by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. So this is a $5 book. I don't know enough about the Sandman, this original Sandman, to know anything about it. And so I'm thinking about checking this out, but it's tough for me to suggest you plop $5 down for it. So if that sounded interesting, please do. But I don't want to force you. Let's see, I think that's about it. That really stands out to me in DC. If Kyle was here, he'd mention Nightwing. I will not. No, I already did. The only thing in IDW that kind of sticks out to me is, of course, Time and Vine, #2. Hopefully you've read Time and Vine #1. It was a great issue. It's a $4.99 book, but it's oversized and beautiful. So it's definitely worth it. Tom Zoller does both the writing and the art. And in this issue, Jack starts teaching Megan the rules of time travel, while Darren teaches her all about the winery, and Megan takes her first solo trip back in time to the 80s, where she discovers a startling family secret, which we kind of hinted at in issue 1. And of course, nothing else stands out in IDW. We have an Image. We have the Bitch Planet triple feature, the 3rd issue. I love this. These first 2 issues have been great. 3 separate stories set in the Bitch Planet universe by 3 very different, distinct creators who, with their take on some little aspect or new character or something subversive that's happening in that world. It's really cool. I've liked all of them, and they've all been interesting in their own way. Some art's a little stronger than others. Some of the story writing is a little stronger than others, but they're all worth the time. It's a $3.99 book, and I actually prefer this now to the last arc of Bitch Planet. It's definitely better than that, and good stuff. Well worth checking out. We have Genius Cartel, number 1 of 5, written by Mark Bernardin and Adam Freeman, with art by Rosie Campy. And if you read the first Genius, it came out a few years ago, was released weekly in 1 month. So all 4 issues were released in 1 month, and it was based on part of Image's pilot season, where they were releasing a bunch of things and pitching them as new ongoings. And it was one that kind of must have stood out to somebody and was greenlit. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it a lot, so I'm looking forward to this next volume. It's a great character. 17-year-old Destiny Ajay took on the LAPD in her South Central siege and paid for it, not with her life, but with her freedom. Now Destiny is sequestered in the Mandrasa Institute, a government school for prodigies. But will she use her gifts to wage war at the military's behest, or is she already planning another revolution? So it's very similar to Think Tank and Samaritan / The Tithe that Matt Hawkins did. So it's got that same kind of feel. This person's smarter than everybody else, but he's partnering with the government to do something. So it's got not a real original plot going on there, but the first volume was good. So I'm hoping the second volume is also good. We have Mage Hero Denied, number 1, written by Matt Wagner, with art and cover by Matt Wagner. And this is the first full-size issue, which begins 10 years after the climax of The Hero Defined, which I did not read. So if you read The Mage, The Hero Defined, this is The Hero Denied. So you can check that out. Spy Seal number 1 is written by Rich Tomaso, with art and cover by Rich Tomaso. Journey into the thrilling world of international espionage as one of Britain's most covert MI6 divisions, The Nest, recruits a brand new secret agent to their teams. Spy Seal, an exciting new comic series reminiscent of the adventures of Tintin and Usagi Yojimbo. And this is the same guy who did She-Wolf, which was kind of a train wreck. So that's not the best analogy. Unless you were a lover of She-Wolf, you will love this for sure. But it's got that anthropomorphic animal deal. If you're into that, that's cool. Art looks pretty good from just the cover that I'm looking at, and hopefully it's a good story. I'm going to sample this. I'm not all in on it. I'm just going to sample this first issue. As I look down through the rest of Image, we've got the Invincible. We're getting close to the end there. Part 7 of The End of All Things. We've got the 5th issue of Rat Queens, which I've jumped off of. We've got Regression, which I've dropped. Rockstars number 6, which I've dropped. Southern Bastards, which I will never drop. It is fantastic and is back. Thank goodness. And we have Winnebago Graveyard, dropped off that. Not reading that one. Kill the Minotaur, not reading that. I Hate Fairyland, no longer read that. That is the conclusion of a story arc, though. So the next issue will be something to jump onto. Curse Words number 7 is coming out. Not reading that. So I've dropped a lot of books in Image for some reason. At least it sounds like when I read them off the list this week. It's pretty bad. As we move down to Marvel, we have Generations Wolverine and All New Wolverine number 1. Written by Tom Taylor with art by Ramon Rosanas. And with a cover by Jorge Molina. The death of Wolverine shook the Marvel Universe, and the ascension of the all-new Wolverine reimagined what a healing factor and some adamantium claws can do. But the amazing combination of Logan and Laura is the duo you've been waiting for. I don't know if that's true, but it's a $5 book. It's Generations number 1, Wolverine and all-new Wolverine. I don't know what this means. Uh, I is this just? I'm guessing this is just setting up for bringing Wolverine back, or just reminiscing of an adventure, a lost adventure between them. I have no idea, and I don't understand what Generations is really, except it's a opportunity to lead into Legacy and renumber some books. That's really all I know. Speaking of which, Ultimates 2, number 100, which is a double-sized issue celebrating the 100th issue of the Ultimates, which, okay. It's written by Al Ewing and art by Travel Foreman. Eternity is free, but can even he stand against the might of the first firmament? Or does the embodiment of anything need help from the outside? Featuring the Ultimates and the Ultimates? This is a $5 book. Surprise. I sense a theme here. And if any of that solicit made sense to you, you're probably already a reader of the Ultimates. Or the Ultimates 2, I'm sorry. And so you will be all enjoying this. I like round numbers, so I wanted to check out what 100 was all about, and I no longer care. Looking down the rest of Marvel, we've got the 10th issue of Amazing Spider-Man: Renew Your Vows. We have Luke Cage number 4 of interest. Mighty Thor number 22. Still embroiled in that big war with the new Thor, looks like. We've got 13th issue of Silver Surfer, which of course delayed. And I think it was canceled and resolicited or something, because it was supposed to come out weeks and weeks ago. We've got the second issue of Spider-Man 2, plus a second printing of the first issue, so it was well received. We have Star Wars 34. Excited about that. A couple of True Believers, the 100th Captain America number 1, celebrating the 100th birthday of Kirby with Captain America number 1 and Eternals number 1. Both of which sound kind of fun for $1. Might check that out, because it's reprinting Captain America number 1 and some stories from Tales of Suspense. And the Eternals is reprinting Eternals number 1, so that's kind of cool. That's kind of it in Marvel. As we slide down to the back half, we have Divinity Zero. This is a Valiant book written by Matt Kent, with art by Renato Guedes, and a cover by Juan Jose Rip. An epic jumping on point leading Divinity through the whole of the Valiant universe. Okay. Introduction to the largest independent superhero universe in comics, as told through the eyes of Valiant's most powerful cosmic force, Divinity. A lost Russian cosmonaut newly returned to Earth with godlike powers. So, yet another jumping on point for Valiant, and an on-ramp to their universe. I feel like I've given them plenty of opportunities to hook me, and all their stuff is okay. I don't have any problem with any of it. It's just not enough to make me want to be all in, and I don't know if I can really enjoy this stuff unless you are all in. And so I'm going to give Zero a shot. Divinity Zero, I'll take it for its pitch as an epic jumping on point, and give it a try and see if it's just like something I can't live without reading. So I hope so. It'll be fun. We have the 5th issue of Godshaper number 5 from Boom Studios. This is written by Simon Spurrier with art by Jonas Goonface. Can't be how you pronounce his name, but one of our listeners, Derek, was intrigued by our first when we talked about the first issue enough to go out and pick it up, and is really enjoying this and was letting us know how much he likes Godshaper. So wanted to give it a quick shout out. and check out Godshaper from Boom Studios. There should be a trade right around the corner as well, but it has been well received. I didn't get a chance to read it yet, but I think I'll wait for the trade on that. We have Normandy Gold #3, written by Allison Galen and Megan Abbott, with art by Steve Scott and a cover by Claudia Ianniello. Ooh. This is, of course, Titan Comics and part of that hard case crime imprint that I love so much. And it follows Normandy Gold, who finds out that her sister was murdered and goes undercover as a prostitute to find the killer. And it's really, really good. We have The Wicked Righteous from Alterna Comics, written by Terry Mayo, with art by Lucas Romero and Chris Hall. In a post-apocalyptic San Diego, 4 teenage brothers rescue a young girl from a brutal gang of psychopaths, spark a chain of events that attracts an onslaught of unspeakable evil. This is the world of the wicked and the righteous, and the children will lead them all. Printed on newsprint, so therefore it's $1.50. So the cheapest comic being printed in the back half, I think. And go Alterna. And they're not tearing up the sales charts, but hopefully they're making enough money to keep doing this. This is yet another one that I'm all in. I'm buying everything Alterna's putting out, so I'll be checking this one out as well. Some books have been better than others, but I appreciate the effort from Alterna to try to provide on-ramps for folks to sample new comics that aren't big too. So good for them. As we look down the rest of the back half list, we have Amara Karate #5. I'm a couple issues behind, but I've read 2 or 3 of these and I've enjoyed them. Let's see. The second printing of Cal Exit #1, which was a great first issue if you didn't get a chance to read it. For those of you from the right side of the aisle, not going to like it. I'll tell you that right now. So stay away. I enjoyed it very much. Divinica #2, which I don't remember that first one. So I think I must have passed on it. It's got Native American characters. This is delayed since April. It's supposed to come out a while ago. The Native American Nokomis, the Native American Earth Goddess. Divinica is a tragic story following the life and death of her daughter. We've got plenty of Doctor Who if you're into that. We've got a lot of Looker's Ember #1. So there's lots of $6 and $8 and $9 and $10 variants of Looker's Ember #1, which could be, I'm guessing Boundless, right? It's got to be Boundless. Yeah. So lots of nudes, nude covers, and nude wraps, if that's your thing. As I glance down here, we got the Chair, second issue of the Chair, also from Alterna. That's only $1, even less than the $1.50 from the other. We've got the second issue of War of the Planet of the Apes, which I thought was okay, that first issue. So I might read this. I'm not 100% on it. And that's kind of it that stands out from this week of comics. And I'll tell you, this was a bit of a challenge to find anything that was the thing, that I had to have. So I'm going to have to go with Metal. I'm going to have to go with Dark Knight's Metal, although I gave it a lukewarm review. There's enough variants here. We've got a Kubert variant, we've got a Jim Lee variant, and we've got a Romita Jr. variant. So probably the Jim Lee variant's the way to go. But of course, Kyle's rule is cover A, cover A, cover A. So you're going to have to double dip for $10 and get a cover A, and then either any of the variants that you like. But I would lean towards the Jim Lee variant for a long-term flippability. So there you have it. Thanks for listening to the sneak peek. And stay tuned for an exciting interview with Jim Melendez, an online retailer in Hawaii. I think his name's Jim. Rick Melendez? Man, I hope it's not one of those Melendez brothers that killed their family. That would be really bad optics for us as a brand. Comics for Fun and Profit does not endorse the wholesale killing of one's family. Thank you. All right, we got that out of the way. So, whoever this might be, I think it's Rick Melendez, is an online retailer in Hawaii, and he sits down with Jason and talks to him a little bit more about that business and how he does what he does. So, I'm excited about this. So please stay tuned, and thank you for listening to the sneak peek. And we'll talk to you next week. With hopefully Kyle back. So, talk to you later.
Aloha. This is Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of Comics for Fun and Profit. In this episode, I interviewed Rich Melendez of Space Monkey Comics. Space Monkey Comics started selling comics at local conventions and expos here in Hawaii and will be expanding into the eBay market in a few weeks. Here's my interview with Rich Melendez of Space Monkey Comics. I'm here with Richard Melendez.
Correct.
Okay, of Space Monkey Comics. So, we're here. We're going to talk about, how he's going to promote Space Monkey Comics and, the plans for Space Monkeys Comics. So, I'm also going to apologize to the listeners and also to Drew and John. Sorry, I thought when I met Richard back at the Toy Expo a couple months ago, I thought, Rich was already, selling comics on Facebook. But actually, what it is, he does a pop-up model at first where he just, comes to conventions or expos and, sells his comics over there. But he's also looking to expand in the next few weeks to go sell his comics on eBay. So, without further ado, I'm ready. Here's Rich Melendez of Space Monkey Comics.
Hi, Jason. Thanks for your time and thanks for the opportunity to talk about Space Monkey today.
Oh, thanks, Rich. So, Rich, I'm just going to start off, some questions, background questions. So, what was your first gateway comic?
Gosh, I don't know if there was just one comic, but I remember my sister reading me Hulk 104, which was the Hulk and the Rhino, possibly one of their first fights, and it must have been a reprint issue, just thinking about my age at the time, but I remember her reading me that like a bedtime story. I also remember I was really big into Power Records, which were comic books with a 45-speed vinyl record that came inserted that was narrating the actual comic, telling you when to turn the page, provided sound effects and the dialogue. And I had, about a half dozen of those at least, and that was a big part of my childhood. It's a real thing I got a charge out of, and I would listen to those, play them, and replay them, and until the records couldn't play anymore, and I would just read the comics and just enjoy the heck out of them.
Wow, it's pretty good. And, so how long have you been collecting comics?
I mean, I've been into comics since, childhood, like I was saying. My mom, my sister reading me comics from when I was little. As far as me actively going out and saving my allowance and buying them, I mean, I'd say probably as of about 8 years. 8 years old, maybe give or take a year. But, really young, pretty much all my life. Quite literally all my life.
And then I'm just going to ask, so when did you seriously start collecting comics, like bagging them and boarding them?
I mean, that would probably have to be mid-teens. And it was mid-teens to late teens, which would correspond with the mid-'80s to late '80s. And it was particularly the X-Men run, Chris Claremont, late John Romita era, or John Romita Jr. era. And as he was getting into some of the other artists, particularly Silvestri, and that run, was it the Outback era?
Yes, yeah.
But even before then, the Fall of the Mutants, the Mutant Massacre, it was right around that period when I was hooked. Full on, and I could afford to maintain a habit and do that regularly on my own, and keep them. So yeah, long time.
About, how large is your collection right now? Just give me an estimate.
I would say between 40 to 50 boxes.
So, about how much in long boxes, right?
Yeah.
About how much in a long box?
I'm sorry, short boxes.
Short boxes, okay.
And depending if They're not boarded. I mean, I think it's about 200 per box. If they're boarded, about 100 to 150.
That's a pretty good collection. Now, out of your personal collection, what is the one issue or run that you treasure the most?
When I first got this question and I was kind of game planning for it, I really didn't think there was an answer, but I want to say it's it was a crossover of Marvel and DC. It was the Uncanny X-Men and the New Teen Titans. That is, I remember getting that issue right off the stands, and it just floored me. I mean, just the Chris Claremont story, the Simonson art, Darkseid and Dark Phoenix, and it was just an incredible, the scope, the epic, and because it is a Marvel DC crossover, it's not going to be reprinted often, if at all, and I haven't seen it too many times out in the wild, so that one I kind of cherish, and that one I'll hold on to a lot.
So I'm going to go a little bit off track here, but we know Chris Claremont's coming down to Amazing. Are you going to get him to autograph that?
That's a good point. I'm not sure if I can find it.
Okay.
But yeah, that's quite possible, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, before we continue, guys, we're here at the Ala Moana Hotel. We're at the Starbucks. So, we're doing the interview here. So if you hear a lot of background noises, like the blender in the background, that's where we are. We're at the Starbucks in the Ala Moana Hotel. So I'm going to continue with my questions. What is the one comic, that you always wanted for your personal collection, but never got it, or it's kind of like your white whale. What's your white whale for your own personal collection?
I'll be honest. I don't know if I ever had a white whale or. Because I might be an oddball collector in the sense, but I don't covet the actual issues. Like, I want the story. So, I'll throw out an example, like the Dark Phoenix saga. For years, I wanted to read the Dark Phoenix saga, and then I caught it in a reprint. I caught a collected volume of that, and I was totally happy with that. So I didn't need to dig out the archives and save up hundreds of dollars to find, the issue where Jean Grey becomes Phoenix or where Phoenix kills herself. I was happy with just having a collected reprint. So I think at this age too, where in this era where you can get digital comics and reprints galore, and everything is available all the time. So I don't know if I have that white whale issue anymore. Yeah. So.
But you've got a very good point, because right now everything is pretty much available on digital. Yeah, that's right. So okay. What are some of the current titles are you reading today?
I'm always been a big Marvel guy, and I continue to be a big Marvel guy. I know Marvel's been getting a lot of flack lately. If you read the comics press, everybody says Marvel's in decline and the characters, and I think they're doing some great things. I'm really getting a kick out of Secret Empire. That event. It's such a well done story. Black Panther by Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Yes.
It's amazing stuff he's doing there. And I'm really bummed that the spin-off series got canceled, The Crew and The Road to Wakanda. I'm also big on America by featuring America Chavez. To me, that's a fun comic. Not like anything else that's out there. Outside of Marvel, I've been enjoying Tom King's run on Batman.
Oh, okay.
That's been a lot of fun. I'm enjoying the Young Animals imprint at DC's doing with Doom Patrol, Shade the Changing Girl. Those are all fun.
Kid Carson.
Kid Carson as a cybernetic guy. That's a lot of fun stuff. And it reminds me of when I was the first wave of Vertigo, pre-Vertigo, the early 90s, late 80s. It's got some of that energy, so I've been really digging that. And there's a new imprint, or a new publisher out now called Lion's Forge.
Yes, I've kind of heard of it,
And they've been drizzling out their new titles. So I've been, Noble was the first one. It's been like three issues out. There's a new title, I think Excel or Accelerate, that I haven't read yet. But so far I've been enjoying the line. And it's been good fun,
Oh, okay. All right. And then, now, before you started Space Monkeys, did you kind of sell comics on the side? Like maybe just sell it to some close friends, or did you kind of do your own swap meet thing?
Not at all, actually. Not at all. Several years ago, me and two friends had talked about opening a comic book store, or a brick and mortar store. I mean, this was well over a decade ago, and long story short, it never happened.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of that. But prior to Space Monkey, or even in the year or two leading Space Monkey, I never really sold my comics. I was pretty much a comics hoarder. You know, I just had boxes and boxes. And what changed was I moved. I actually had 2 apartments at once. I got a new place, and it overlapped with my old place for about a month. So I was able to do a lot of moving on my own. And at the time, I had a little compact car. And I figured, okay, after work, let me move some boxes, let me move some stuff if I can. And then at the end of the month, I'll get a friend to help me with the big furniture. And I realized that month, when I was shuttling back and forth in my little compact car, 90% of that was comic books. Or books.
Wow.
You know.
Okay.
Comic books and books, but I mean, it was just, and I told myself, never again. Just so Space Monkey actually started with the need for me to unload my comics, but by the nature of it, it's, buy, sell, trade, so I accumulate as many as I sell. So it didn't quite work out as planned, but it's more fun this way instead of just hoarding it, at least it's rotating.
Now, I'm going to say that's a great segue. So can you describe for, to the listeners, what is Space Monkey Comics?
We are a pop-up comic book purveyor. So a comic book dealer, buy, sell, trade, and we have this pop-up model where we'll show up. Currently, we're showing up at events, so a lot of the local conventions, KawaiiCon, the Toy Expo, the Toy and Comic Expo, Comic-Con Honolulu sometimes, and so just the local models. And we also there's a local event that takes place monthly called Art and Fleet.
Oh, what is that?
It takes place in the Kaka'ako area of Honolulu by Ward. And it's a monthly, and I don't mean this in a bad derogatory way, but it's a hipster flea market, pretty much. But it's a lot of fun, it's a lot of artisans, people who make their own clothing, make their own jewelry, people reselling stuff. There's these guys, Secret Record Store, who sell vinyl, why they DJ the event. And that's how actually we started, was there. Very small, just started with like a box or two, and then realizing there might be something there, kind of grew from there, and that's how Space Monkey.
How long has Space Monkey, been operating?
As a brand, well, we've been incorporated since June of 2016. As a brand, since December of 2015, and then unofficially unbranded for about a year or two before that. So. It's like, I figure 2013, 2014 to now.
Okay, so at least about 4 years? About 4 years, right?
I figure, 3 to 4 years. Yeah, but officially as Space Monkey, about a year to year and a half.
Okay. And then, let's see. Was this like a dream job that you always wanted to do, like sell your comics?
Not necessarily. Like I mentioned, well over a decade ago, we talked about opening a comic shop. But I don't know if that was necessarily a dream so much. It was just I really enjoyed comics and work in something you love doing. So I love comics, and so I figured, okay, well, I can do this. And that didn't happen, but the opportunity arose again.
So
I'm like, I could do this. This is fun. So far so good. So I wouldn't say it's a dream, but I'm enjoying it.
But and I think it's more love. I should have rephrased the words like, is it something that you love to do? And this is a side job, correct?
Oh, correct. Yeah, just a side hustle among many.
I'm going to get off a little track here, but Rich, can you just explain to the listeners like what's your real life full-time job?
By day, I'm a content manager and special projects manager for a local company. So I'm part of their marketing team, in short, handling a lot of the writing, event coordination, and similar activities for the company. Aside from that, I'm managing editor for a small local magazine called Abstract Magazine, which comes out about once or twice a year. And that's a lot of fun. So I'm the managing editor of that and contribute stories now and then. And outside of that, Space Monkey, which has been filling up the rest of my time, what little time I have at this point.
Abstract Magazine, I'm just going to ask, is that something that people can find online, or is it just, like Is it like just a publication magazine?
Good question. We are primarily a print publication, small local circulation, about 5,000 copies per issue. We do have a website, abstracthawaii.com. Many, not all of our stories, but many of our stories are reprinted online. And we also do have an ordering page, or an online store. So if people actually want to order a print copy, they can go there and find past issues and order a copy that can mail to them.
Okay. All right. So, for listeners, so if you guys are interested in, abstract magazines, Rich just gave the website. So, please, if you guys get a chance, check them out. And I'm going to still continue on with our questions. How did you guys come up with the company name?
I wanted something that was fun and that seemed inviting. And I'm not going to name names, but a lot of other comic shops, locally and abroad, tend to have very serious names or something that evokes something very fantasy or very sci-fi. And it paints a certain picture. It's not a negative picture, but I wanted something that had a different vibe to that. And Space Monkey to me seemed, just the way it rolls off the tongue, Space Monkey just seems sort of like a swish, swashbuckling, adventurous, fun. And then the mascot, which obviously everybody can't see, but it's it's this cute little monkey with this grin wearing an astronaut helmet. And it just seemed fun and inviting. And I found too, when people are walking by us at cons, they'll just kind of initially look at us, they'll just see comics, and they look up and they see the mascot, and you can see their face, they get this smile. And then they kind of nod, and then they come over. So there's something that's connecting with at least the look or the name or the vibe of the Space Monkey brand, which, so if it draws people in, to our table or booth, then all the better.
Okay. And then I know you guys have Instagram. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. Let me go back. So who developed the mascot?
The mascot, the concept was my idea. I mean, it was a monkey in an astronaut suit. And the actual design was done by Grace Chi. We're business partners, and she did the design for Space Monkey. Just did it kind of based on my direction, and she's also done our website and any graphic needs, any designing needs we've needed along the way. She's been the go-to person.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Okay, so I know you guys have followers on Instagram and Facebook, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm going to ask did you guys do the Space Monkey, like going to the expos and the cons first, or did you guys start to do the Instagram and Facebook to get, attract customers? Like, what came first, basically?
Oh, good question. I think it came around the same time. We had an event at the end of 2015, December 2015, and when that event was coming up, we kind of realized, this is a good opportunity to kind of launch as Space Monkey, to say, instead of just being the guy selling comics out of boxes, to actually have the brand. So we had 2 weeks of runway, and we said, okay, well, let's make a banner. Okay, let's make some signs. Okay, here's the name, and we whipped out the mascot, and in that window of a week or two, I just threw up the Facebook page and the Instagram page and started pushing the event. Hey, we're going to be here, on such and such date in December. So it all kind of came together at the same time.
Okay. And then, when if you, I don't know. I'm going to ask the question. When you guys whipped this all together, did you guys get a lot of hits on your Facebook and Instagram? Like, hey, I'll see you there, or hey, what table are you at, or anything? Did you guys get a lot of followers?
Not initially. The growth has been, the attention has been very slow. This event was actually the first event of its type. It wasn't a traditional Comic-Con. It was called Paper and Plastic, and it was something that we actually put in conjunction with the local college radio station, KTUH.
Oh, yeah.
So it was an event that we did at Bar 35 in Chinatown. And we figured, okay, we're going to sell comics, the paper, and they're going to sell their records, plastic.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of a mini flea market. It was just them selling records, me selling comics, and they had a DJ, and they had the bar going. So it was sort of a last-minute event.
Oh, yeah.
And, so that's how that came about.
And then, ever since then, have you been, has your followers, have they been increasing?
Slowly but surely.
Okay.
Slowly but surely. I mean, after an event, there'll be a small spike. You know, we hand out business cards, or people will see our presence or banner. There'll be a small spike in likes. If I use an appropriate hashtag, there was one, I forgot what it was, but it was a comic-related post. It was a humorous post. And one of the hashtags was Parenting 101, just, you know, in an ironic way. And I got all these hits from, like, parenting websites and parenting magazines and you know, spike in likes. And it was like, well, it wasn't intentional, but I'll take it. You know, just,
Before we continue, I'm just going to ask, you know, can you just like name like your Instagram and your Facebook website?
I'll name the...
Where can people find you?
On Instagram, we're at Space Monkey Hawaii. And Facebook, it's facebook.com/SpaceBookHawaii.
Okay.
Or the actual page name is Space Monkey Comics Hawaii.
Okay.
And if people want to email us, it's spacemonkeyhawaii@gmail.com.
And then, you know, for everyone, you know, I've checked out their Instagram, their Facebook. You know, it's really great. You know, they did little memorial tributes to the late Adam West. And I'm going to ask, let me ask this other question. It's not written on here, but, you know, what do you post on your Facebook and the Instagram?
If we're nearing an event, I'll post, you know, promotionals to the events, just, you know, gearing iPads, 1 more day, 2 more days, we're going to be here, here's what we're going to be featuring at the event. If it's those lulls between actual events, it's a mix of maybe link sharing, like the aforementioned tributes like Adam West, you know, you mentioned. So, you know, we'll post things or links or stories that I think of might be interest to my followers, comic related usually. Sometimes a shout out to a comic that I'm reading at the particular time. More often than not, I'm taking out of context panels from comic books and just, you know, a screenshot of them or a scan of them and just something humorous, you know, and just kind of tag on just to keep the engagement up, keep us, you know, top of mind and keep the presence there. And then the next event comes and then we'll shift the focus of our post to more event focused.
But I've seen some of those screenshots, and some are pretty funny.
Thanks. I'm glad somebody thinks so.
Now I'm going to jump around a little bit because, like you mentioned, sometimes you give a shout out to a comic that you're reading. Since you're a writer and you're an editor, do you read comics for fun, or do you kind of go, they should have done this, or I don't know if that worked?
First and foremost, for fun, always for fun. If I can forget I'm reading a comic, that's probably the best type of comic. The exceptions to that will be like if it's a really bad comic or something's not clicking with me, then my analytical mind will go in and it's like, okay, why didn't it work? Maybe they should have done this with that scene, or that dialogue didn't work, or the character would never do that. The flip side is, if it's a really, really well done comic, and I'd be so wowed, I'm like, how did they do that? How did they move me? Or how did they do that transition? Or how did they keep the momentum? You know, if it's a really well done comic, then, you know, I'll try to pick it apart. But I'd say a good 75% of the comics I read, I can just totally lose myself and shut off the editor in me. And just enjoy the ride as is.
Is there any, do you have, well, I know you mentioned before we started that Brian Michael Bendis is one of your favorite writers. Do you have any other favorite writers?
Oh, gosh. My top 5 list of anything will change from month to month, week to week. But I mean, Brian Michael Bendis, I'm a big fan of Warren Ellis, who, actually, you mentioned comics that I'm enjoying right now. I'm really digging his run on, it's called The Wildstorm. And it's his reimagining of the Wildstorm universe, you know, starting from scratch. And it's so well done. So I really like Warren Ellis. Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's doing Black Panther right now. So many others. I mean, of course, you know, Grant Morrison, you know, so many greens, Neil Gaiman. I mean, I can go on and on. But I mean, I'd say right now, I think those are my top few, you know, top 3 to 4. Was Bendis, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Warren Ellis, just knocking it out of the park right now.
You're the third person that has told me about the Wildstorm that they're enjoying it. Because Drew from Comics for Fun and Profit and John Mayo, they reviewed, I think they reviewed one issue of Wildstorm #1. They said they loved it. So I'm not going, okay, maybe I need to pick up this comic.
I recommend it.
All right. Before I continue, like I said, a little bit of a sidetrack, but I know Brian Michael Bendis was here last year at Amazing Comic Con. Have you met him or any of the other writers that you met? You mentioned.
I haven't met Brian Michael Bendis. Actually, there was a funny story, but I couldn't make that particular con because of a family emergency. But Grace, who I mentioned earlier, was going, and I think I may have jokingly asked her, get me a picture or get me something. And she actually turned around and she got a picture of her with Brian Michael Bendis. And Bendis is holding up a sign that says, "Rich, where are you, you loser?" So I actually got that picture of the two of them, and I actually got that sign that he was holding up. And
that's nice.
he actually signed a comic, or she purchased a Daredevil comic that he signed for me too, which I've got also. Other than that, since I'm usually behind the table, I don't get out too often to meet too many of the creators, but I did have the opportunity at, I forget which con, if it was James Robinson, the writer from Starman, was here recently.
He was here last year.
I forget which con it was, but he was here last year. And I was a huge fan of Starman when it came out. And I'm enjoying, actually he's doing a Nick Fury series right now, which is beautiful. Okay, so add that to my list of comics I'm enjoying right now. But, so when he came here, I actually had a fanboy moment, and I told myself, okay, it's cool, I'm going to play it cool, I'm going to get him to sign my books, I'm not going to fanboy out. And then when he opened his mouth, I just totally fanboyed out, and I just rambled on and on like I am now. And it was such a fanboy moment, it was funny. And then of course I'm like, okay, I've embarrassed myself enough. And I turn around and I happen to bump into somebody and make the moment all the more awkward. And, so middle-aged man being awkward, it was funny. Now I think it's funny. At the time I was sweating bullets.
Rich, you're not the only one. Trust me, we've all had our fanboy moments. And I'm sure like Drew and John probably have had theirs too. Going back to Space Monkey, so the Space Monkey comic inventory, like what do you have most? Like, do you have like things from the modern, silver, golden age, any keys, autograph issues?
Good question. Most of my stuff, since this started with my personal collection initially, most of the stuff is Bronze Age and Modern Age. So I'd say from like the mid 80s through the 90s and early 2000s, the majority. I have come across very few Silver Age, no Golden Age, and probably nothing from within the last 3 years, for the most part.
And then, let's see, what about like, do you have like any autograph issues or variant cover issues? Do you sell those too?
If I come across them, I sell them. As a reader, I don't chase them.
Okay.
As a reader, I've never really been into the variants or the autographs. So as a vendor, I don't really sell them. Although, when I make purchases, I usually purchase in lots. And as I go through and I'm pricing out the lots, and I'll see like, this is the standard cover, I'll see it's a variant.
Yeah.
And, I'll price it accordingly as the variant. So I come across some, I do have some, but it's not necessarily that I'm hunting them down or targeting them.
No, exactly. That's a great segue. So how do you go about replenishing your stock? Let me take a step back. So when you're at these small conventions or expos, this is from your personal, the comics are from your personal collection that you're selling?
The seeds of what Space Monkey does, it started off as my personal collection. But yeah, I've sold off plenty of that, and I've replenished plenty of that. So I do, I do make purchases. I've had people approach me, do you buy comics? So I do purchase, I prefer to purchase lots as opposed to onesies, twosies, but I'll happily do the onesies, twosies. Yeah. But I usually purchase lots, boxes at a time, or at least a box at a time. So I've had people approach me. Sometimes I'll troll not Facebook, Craigslist. And I'll see Hawaii has a very transient population. So you have a lot of military coming and going, a lot of people leaving for the mainland for one reason or another. They're trying to get rid of their collections, and just even a lot of locals too. But so I'll see what's out there, and if they have anything that looks interesting, I'll take a look and go from there.
Oh, okay. Because that basically answered my next question. Like, how do you, go about, replenishing your stocks? Let's see. The other thing I wanted to ask, I know you sell single issues. Do you also sell like graphic novels, trades, and hardcovers?
Yes, I do. Yeah, so I as I come across those, I'll happily sell them. A lot of those too initially came from my personal collection, but like I said, as I purchase stock and rotate more material in, I've been making those acquisitions too.
The other question I'm going to ask, I know you said that when you first started, it was mostly your personal collection. I'm going to ask, is like, was it hard to sell some of your collection? Like, oh, okay, I'm letting this go. I have to let this go. Goodbye. Was it hard or anything?
That's a good question. It was not as hard as I thought it would be.
Okay.
And I think the impetus for me selling this was I had gone through a move. It was such a burden to have all these. It just felt like this huge albatross at the back of my Mazda. Yeah. So it was actually sort of a relief to start selling them. With that said, though, there's some that I'm not quite ready to part with.
Yeah.
The aforementioned New Teen Titans, X-Men crossover. That one I'm not going to sell, or or if I do come across other copies, I'm still going to maintain at least one copy for myself.
Yes.
In general, there's been other ones that I haven't quite been ready to sell. I think, now that I think about it, I think a lot of DC Marvel crossovers, just because they haven't been reprinted, or they're so seldom reprinted, so I'll kind of keep those for myself, like the All Access and Marvel vs. DC Green Zone, things like that. And a few others that can't come to mind right now, but I know I have some that I'm not quite ready to sell.
No, but I mean, that's understandable. There is some that's like, no, this is mine. Out of your little personal collection, I can't remember. What is the what's the one issue you probably won't let go? Like for me, I won't sell my giant size X-Men #1. Not until I'm close to dying. Like, is there one particular or a couple issues that you won't sell?
Other than the ones I mentioned to you just now, I can't say definitively no. There's nothing I wouldn't sell eventually. Because I'll be honest. I said maybe makes me an unusual collector because I don't covet the item so much as I just enjoy reading them, enjoying the story. If I have a reprint of a classic, I'm happy with the reprint. And I just enjoy the joy of reading, and actually the joy of sharing. Yeah. It's like, hey, I've got this great story. I've read it a million times. Oh, you haven't read this yet? Oh my God, you got to read this. Here you go. And I'll gladly sell it to somebody who, will get a chance to enjoy it for the first time.
Okay. Because, it's kind of like, because I think it's kind of like, I'm going to say because, it's like we're jumping a little bit ahead. Like, I was going to ask, like, do you have certain satisfaction in selling the comics?
Absolutely. Aside from what I mentioned before about this being a burden, how it started was because it was a burden or trying to get rid of comics. But now that it's evolved and I'm still acquiring as much as I sell, when I go to these cons and I have the face-to-face experience, I love the experience of talking about comics like we are now, but geeking out with other collectors, but even meeting other people who maybe are just getting into comics and you don't know where to start. Or, the oddest, not the oddest, I think one of the most heartwarming interaction was like, this girl had to be about 10, and she loved Aquaman, and she was looking for Aquaman. And you have diehard fans who are, my age or, younger, and they have no interest in Aquaman. And for whatever reason, this preteen girl was really into Aquaman, and she's looking for Aquaman. And that, to me, was awesome, that, there's still life, and there's still this eagerness to just track down a character that by some measures is, I won't say obscure, but not A-list, but she loves it, and so it's neat. So I love turning people on to new things, helping them find what maybe nobody else is into, and things like that. It's a really neat experience.
Let's see. The other thing I wanted to, like I said, I'm sorry guys, I'm kind of sort of jumping around. I'll get back on track, but your customers, the ones that follow you on Instagram or Facebook and at the conventions, do you take requests on certain issues that are not in your stock? But say, for example, someone at a con goes, "Hey, Rich, I'm looking for X-Men number 54. If you ever come across it, give me a call." Does that ever happen? And do you guys do that?
Answer backwards. In theory, we'll do that.
Okay.
And I have had people ask me. My stock doesn't rotate all that fast now, so I'm not knocking on doors and beating the streets day in, day out.
Yeah.
So if I don't have 54 today, X-Men 54 today,
Yeah.
I probably won't have it for several months.
Okay,
you
no.
I mean, with that said, but usually at a con environment, I'll say, I don't have it, but the guys in that booth over there, I know they got a lot of Silver Age X-Men, maybe check with them and things like that. So I mean, I'll turn on to other booths at the event immediately. With that said, though, I'll still take their name and number.
Yeah.
And I said if I did come across it, I'll check. But with the caveat, like I told you, that I'm not actively hunting stock right now, so maybe a while.
Yeah.
I do have a lot of people too ask because you can only bring anywhere from like 15 to 20 boxes to an event.
Yeah.
So I'll have people say, "Oh, do you have such and such?" And I may not have it there, but I know I have it at home.
Okay.
I can only bring so much stock to
Yeah.
So I'll take their name and number. I'll give them my name and number, and I'll say, or I'll even ask them, "Are you going to be here tomorrow?"
Yeah.
Check in the booth first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And then I'll go home that night and I'll dig, and see if I have it. So.
Okay. Like your short boxes. Sorry, I'm kind of like going a little off track, but do you have them like alphabetized, or do you like, okay, this box is all my X-Men run, this is all my Action Comics, my Superman comics,
That's a great question. No. Well, because as I accumulated these through the years, they were just sort of chronological.
Okay.
So I guess each box was sort of like a geological era. You can dig like, okay, this era was the early 90s. Oh, this box was the late 90s. As I started selling them, there's the need to organize them. So I've been fishing out and I've been organizing. So I do have, my X-Men section, my, Batman section, so I do have them broken. The ones that I'm actively selling, I do have broken down.
Yeah.
But that said, there's still a lot of inventory that I haven't separated and poured through yet. As they come out, they will be separated and organized. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. Let's see. Now, this question is from Drew. When you're at conventions, do you have an estimate of what kind of volumes are you selling, at a convention? Like, sorry, Drew, I'm kind of adjusting your question, but do you have a volume, that you're selling at conventions, like units, like, a lot or run is 1 unit, and do you have how much money? Just an estimate, and if you don't want to talk about the money part, that's fine. But how much money do you make at each con or something?
I have no qualms talking about the money. And it varies from con to con. I initially, I used to do a lot of just $2 comics. Just everything you had was $2, and I would do fairly well with that.
Okay.
Then later on, I started, coming across and actually pricing some of the more valuable comics accordingly. Not that I didn't price them before, I just wasn't selling the more valuable comics before. But then I would fish them out, and I was like, I can get $50 for this one. I can get $20 for that one, $100. So I would, fish those out and sell them. And with mixed success, sometimes they would sell or not sell. I guess to get back to your initial question, as far as actual units, it varies. Actual dollars, again, that varies, but more or less I break even on the tables. Let's put it that way. I'll break even whatever the table cost is for the convention. To date, I've more or less broken even.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit profit, maybe a little bit under. But that's where you start.
And then, Drew, again, I'm just adjusting your questions to our interview. You mentioned about pricing. I'm also going to talk a little bit about grading. Like, how subjective is customer grading versus your grading? Such as, I'm just throwing an example, like, let's say X-Men 141, you're looking at it, and you kind of go, it kind of looks like a fine condition. But and you price it accordingly. And your pricing, do you go through the buyer's guide, or how do you go about pricing the comics?
That's a good question. As I price comics, I I reference about 3 or 4 different sources. I do reference the Buyer's Guide. I reference, I won't name names, but there's a major online vendor of comic books. I'll see what they're selling it for.
Okay.
And they also happen to list the different grades, what they're selling the different grades for. I check eBay to see what it's sold for recently, what people are asking for now. And that's pretty much it. Like, I'll check 3 different sources. I kind of find a medium between those numbers that I'm comfortable with, and I'll say, okay, that's what they're selling it for. I'm looking at those. Yeah, I think I can get this much for it. You know, I'll kind of price it that way.
Oh, but that's pretty good. That, like you said, you're not just only relying on one source. You're doing like different. You're looking at different areas, and then just trying to find. That's really good. Yeah. And then going back to the grading, like, you know, subjective wise, like, you know, if you think a comic book is in fine condition, but then someone comes up to you and go, I think this is good or very good. You know, have you come across some of those customers?
I haven't come across that. I mean, my prices are negotiable in general anyway. I mean, I may think I'm going to get this for $50. You know, if a guy says, nah, it's only $10, you know, maybe I'll balk.
Yeah.
I haven't had that happen, mind you. But, you know, but I mean, if they say, oh, 50, well, it looks like it's worth 40, I might listen to them. Or if they want to talk me down, if they want to negotiate, I'm willing to, you know, to budge. But to your specific example, I haven't had people question my prices or my grading as being inappropriate or off.
Let's see. I'm just going to ask, you know, like, this side, I'm going to try to ask this as best I can. Like, did you know, like some of your customers, you know, did you ever feel like you got kind of cheated at some times? Like, and if you don't want to answer that question, that's fine.
I mean, by making a purchase?
Yeah. Or, you know, well, either purchasing or someone buying something from you. They're like, no, I think this is lower than that.
No, I haven't come across that. No transaction that I felt I got the wrong end of the deal on.
Okay. What about purchasing stuff? Because you brought up a very good point,
Not on individual items.
Okay.
I purchased a lot from somebody that I found on Craigslist, and he described the lot one way, and the photos of the lot were a certain way. When I actually got to see, there was a lot more fluff with that collection. Just not as much good stuff, or the stuff that I thought was good was not in as great condition. So I was able to talk him down a bit. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I necessarily got ripped off, but I thought there was a misrepresentation going there.
Let's see. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on, and then, like, you know, I'm going to get back to, come back to, in a couple weeks, we talked about earlier that in a couple weeks, Space Monkey Comics is going to start selling comics on eBay, correct?
That's my hope. eBay, and then I think in talking with you, I realize, Facebook Marketplace or even Instagram Marketplace might be possibilities too. But that's my hope. I found that this pop-up model, solely by itself, is not sustainable. I think if you have a brick and mortar comic shop, and they're selling comics day in, day out, and then, in a given month, or they decide to do a convention, they can easily afford the table costs, and if they take a loss, it may not be that big a deal, because they've got this brick and mortar operation going day in, day out. In Space Monkey situation, this is the only game we've got going, so if we go to an event, and we take a loss at that event, we've taken a loss. There's no
recovery
brick and mortar to make it, so that's why I wanted to expand into online sales, eBay and possibly other channels. So, and it's something I thought about for a while, because here in Hawaii, we have, anywhere from like 4 to 6 cons a year, with several months where there's nothing going on. So I figured it'd be nice to maybe find a way to fill those gaps, if you only have one con a month or every other month, what am I going to do the rest of the year? And then realizing as I got further along that, just the pop-up only isn't really working out. The need and the desire to explore online sales became more powerful. So I figured that could maybe be my equivalent of the brick and mortar. And if that goes well, then I can afford these cons and I can do the pop-ups more, without worrying about if I take a loss, it's a small loss, versus it's going to bankrupt me for the next few months or whatever.
Yeah.
Hyperbole, not bankrupt.
Oh, no, yeah. And, what was the process for you to, for our listeners who are interested in maybe to set up something on eBay? Do you mind talking about like the process of like how did you start up, going through the eBay steps and so forth?
I mean, it's been I'm in the very baby steps right now. I mean, it started just looking to see what other guys are doing. The next step is just set up your own eBay account. And you can set one up as a vendor. And pardon me on the terminology, but I mean, individuals can sell on eBay, but to actually set yourself up, position yourself as a business on eBay, it's some slightly different steps. So what I found is, when I actually tried to set up a business presence, they said, you can't do that until you actually make a sale first. So I have to make a sale, I presume, as an individual, and then after that, then I can make a business presence, on eBay. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I know they also ask for banking information, which gather up. And I know when I was initially registering, I didn't have that information in front of me. So now you go back and you enter that in. But like I said, I'm in the very baby steps right now. So I mean, I'm sure if somebody went to eBay now and searched Space Monkey, I'm not even going to show up yet. But like I said, hopefully in the next few weeks. And we will definitely keep people posted on our social media accounts if people do follow us. As that happens.
Okay. And then, let's see. When you do start selling on eBay, I'm just trying to clarify. So is it just going to be for Hawaii residents, or are you looking like mainland and beyond type?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. My instinct is to say whoever wants to buy. If they happen to be in Texas or Florida or China or Seattle, I'll happily sell to them. Okay. If they find that it's worth it and they can't find it in their area and the shipping business is out, power to them. I'll sell to anybody. Okay. And then,
and you don't have to answer this question, but would the postage be included, or is that going to be tacked on?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I don't know yet. I cautiously, tentatively, I'd say I'd probably tack on an additional postage fee. What that would look like, I have no idea at this point.
Okay. No. Rich, thanks for answering that. Sorry, man. Let's see. And then for eBay, let's see. I think, what is the future looking for Space Monkey Comics right now? I know you're going to start the eBay thing up in a few weeks.
I hope to have a robust, active, mixed presence where things are active online. I'm getting a nice amount of online sales, and then through that, I will be able to resume going to these cons. With regularity instead of picking and choosing. Yes. Just being able to go pretty much any of them, and hopefully that one will sustain the other. And then down the line, way down the line, there's been talk of some sort of brick and mortar store. Not a traditional comic shop, not where we'd be doing new comics and Diamond Distributors, waiting for the Wednesday haul, nothing like that, but more of maybe more of like an antique shop type vibe, just focusing on comics, maybe other items, but basically it would just be primarily a comic shop, with a vintage comic shop, I should say. Yeah. And then, I'm sorry, I'm
going to clarify. Were you thinking of also starting up a website too?
I do currently have a website. Okay. Very basic right now, where we just describe what we are, and we have, we'll post what events we're coming up next. And there is space for an online store. So depending how things look with the eBay or the Facebook Marketplace or Instagram, I don't know if I'd actually have a separate store, a store that links to my eBay page, or that's just saying what's going on eBay. I'm not sure what it would look like, but there is an intent to somehow integrate the website with whatever online sales we do, however that looks, I'm not sure.
No, but that's pretty good. That's pretty good that you're going to try to link them two together. That's pretty good. Let's see. Before we wrap up, I'm going to go back to your writer and editor background. You know, on your Instagram or Facebook, you know, have you done any comic reviews on your, you know, your Facebook or Instagram?
I haven't done, on those particular channels, I haven't done a full-on review, critical analysis, or anything like that. I've done maybe a quick shout-out saying, I'm really liking Tom King's run on Batman, or if you haven't picked up America, you know, check it out, it's a lot of fun. You know, I've done like a few-line type of reviews like that, shout-outs. Oh gosh, more than a decade ago, I don't remember the website. I did some online reviews, maybe a handful, I can count on one hand that I've written for them. More recently, here in Hawaii, there's a web channel called Think Tech Hawaii. And I had the opportunity, through a friend of a friend who got me involved with them, to do, I wouldn't call it the video blog so much, but it was like a weekly episode that I do. It was like a 5-minute, 10-minute segment where I could do a comic review or talk about comics culture or something along those lines. So I did about a dozen or two episodes of that type. I know I did one talking about Starman in general. I did one talking about geek culture and San Diego Comic-Con. So I've done some reviews of some sort. Now, those started off as actual written scripts that I would read online and modify. So I've thought about modifying those yet again to make them more compact and possibly posting them on my website or on Facebook or somehow. But I guess to run out to the original question, no. That's the short answer.
No, but that's great, just great. That's great, thank you. Like I said, I'm going to start wrapping this up. Any last words? Anything else you want to talk about Space Monkey Comics or anything?
Not really. I mean, the only thing I can say is I just have fun with comics. And this is not to naysay anybody else's collecting habits, but I think what I enjoy about Space Monkey and what I enjoy with interacting with other people is I don't get hung up so much on the grades. I don't get hung up on the autographs and the variants. I enjoy reading comics, and I think before I'm a comic collector, I'm a comic reader. And those are the people I connect with most when I sell, and I want to instill that joy of reading more than anything else. I mean, if you've got 10 copies of, you know, Avengers Annual number 5, awesome. But I want to reach out to that person who hasn't even read, you know, an Avengers comic and wants to know what a comic is, or you know, or just embrace the joy of reading and just, you know, the joy of adventure and the fun of it.
Yeah, that's great, Rich. Thank you very much. Again, you know, where can people find you?
So once again, on Instagram, we're at Space Monkey Hawaii. On Facebook, you can search for Space Monkey Comics Hawaii, or the actual URL will be facebook.com/Space Monkey Hawaii. And then, of course, our email is going to be spacemonkeyhawaii@gmail.com.
Okay. All right. Rich, before I wrap this up, again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much. And then before you go, I just want to say, you know, when I saw you guys, you and Grace at the Toy Expo a couple months ago, what really stood out for me was, you know, you guys were well dressed. You guys had collar shirts on. Your table was set up really nice. You guys had your products out in front where people can see it. That's the thing that stood out for me. And we talked about this. I'm not trying to put down the regular guys who come to the conventions, t-shirt, jeans, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like I said, you guys were well dressed. Like you guys meant business. That's what stood out to me, you know. So it's just, you know, again, like I said, that's why I wanted to do this interview with you. Again, Rich, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I love talking with you, Jason. I love the opportunity to talk about Space Monkey Comics. So thank you very much, and thanks for the kind words about our table and our dress. And happy accidents, but it's brilliant. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. You know, thank you very much for listening. Until next time, aloha. That was my interview with Rich Melendez of Space Monkey Comics. Again, you can find Space Monkey Comics on the following platforms. On Facebook, it's Space Monkey Hawaii. On Instagram, at Space Monkey Hawaii. And on Twitter, at Space Monkey Hi, H-I. Now, I want to thank a couple people who helped me put this episode together. First off, I want to thank Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit. Drew, thank you very much for letting me do this interview. And again, thank you very much for your questions. The second person I'd like to thank is Julie from Villains in Pants Comics. Julie, thank you very much for your questions. And, I want to thank Rich. Rich, thank you very much for doing the interview. It was great. It was great talking to you about comics. And if you're a new listener to the show, please subscribe to Comics for Fun and Profit. Kyle and Drew are brothers that does comic book speculations on new comics that come out every week. And you can also catch Drew co-hosting the weekly comic spotlight with John Mayle. They do a spoiler-free reviews on 3 comics, one from DC, one from Marvel, and at least one other. They do this every week. And lastly, I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to my interview with Rich Melendez of Space Monkey Comics. Until next time, aloha.